You deserve quality healthcare for your body and mind regardless of your ability to pay. That's why Bowen Health conveniently offers trusted mental health care, primary health care, and addiction recovery treatment for everyone. Having regular checkups with a provider you trust means they can catch concerns early before they become an emergency. For compassionate healthcare, make an appointment today at bowenhealth.org. That's bowenhealth.org.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the ThriveIN Wabash County Podcast. I am one of the co-hosts, Alex Downard, and this afternoon have a long built-up guest that we're excited to have on the show, the town manager of North Manchester, Adam Penrod. Adam, welcome to the ThriveIN Wabash County Podcast.
Welcome, Alex. I've been looking forward to it since I heard about the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, his first question when he came into the studio and was checking everything out was where the makeup room was. Yes. We were going to make sure he looks good. For those listeners that are watching the episode on YouTube, Adam was thinking about you today. Adam, there's a lot to cover in the episode today about North Manchester, all the exciting things that are going on. What we like to do, though, before that is really spend some time just your story, how you're connected to the community, your family. I think that'd be important just so that some of our listeners that may not have gotten to work with you through your work in North Manchester, or if they're listening from across the county, can just become familiar with who you are. And I think it bleeds over into your leadership in the town. So connection, born and raised in Wabash County?
Yes, born and raised. Haven't really left Wabash County very long. I grew up on a family farm I was talking about earlier with my parents being dairy farmers. Not very many dairy farms left in the county, but they still have one. Learned a lot of my work ethic through farming. I used to milk cows when I was in high school. Back probably 6th grade, I started, most of my summers were baling hay and straw, and I'm okay with not baling any more bales anymore as I get older, but it definitely wasn't the fun part of my summer, but what it did was build me toughness, endurance, knowing that the job's not done until it's done. And so I would never replace that at all for me and obviously my siblings as well. But kind of a farm kid, and I thought that was the direction that I was headed in agriculture. But agriculture has really changed over the years. There's less small farms, family farms. As farms got bigger, but less of them. My parents maintained still a smaller family farm, dairy farm, but the opportunities were limited to add multiple families to a smaller farm like that. So I did go to Purdue, so hopefully nobody holds that against me for the IU fans, but in a weird way, I grew up an IU fan, so it is possible to root for both as long as they're not playing each other.
And it's weird now, IU is no longer, it seems to be a basketball school. They're a football school, and Purdue is the one that's the basketball school.
Yeah, times have changed, and it's a little different outlook, but I will support both as long as we're not playing each other. So I did go down to Purdue and finish my animal agribusiness degree down there, which has nothing to do with town manager, but I think people, as they learn in life, you kind of stack on your experiences, and that's helped you get to where you want to go. And a lot of doors have opened for me that I've been really thankful for. But that was my start, was animal agribusiness. I have a minor in psychology, so I probably utilize that more than maybe the animal agribusiness, but there's still economics in it and just the overall business ethic and business process on that. So that's kind of shaped me as far as getting involved with the town. I actually graduated from Manchester High School in 1998.
Okay.
So
Go Squires.
Go Squires. Right after I had graduated college, got married to my wife, Emily. So we're approaching 23 years now. So, and then we have 2 kids, Logan, who's will be a senior this next year at MU in business, and my daughter, Bethany, who's graduating this month. So they've grown up fast, and life is moving right along.
About to be empty nesters.
Empty nesters. Yeah, that's a different part of our life we're looking forward to. So still just everything's town, North Manchester and Wabash County. Really have not moved away. Just see the excitement building over the years with our community. So many great people in great positions and have just the right mindset to move forward positively. It doesn't mean we're perfect. We're going to learn along the way, but we're doing so many great things that we're going to talk about. So that kind of has helped move me towards where we're at right now. And to kind of finish up, I guess, where I've got the town manager. So after I graduated college, I had a friend that worked at the water department. And so he said, hey, there's a job at the wastewater plant. That's not really a top of the list of people's bucket list, I should say, to go work at a wastewater treatment plant or sewage plant. But I said, I'm getting married. I need to get a real job. And so I took that job, and I thought I would wait to find until that my real career job came about. And I've been with the town for 23 years. So that's went fast. I gained a lot of experience over that time. I worked at the wastewater plant for close to 4 years before I became the superintendent down there. So at the age of 27, I was a superintendent, still kind of feeling my way. But I am a faith-driven person that I feel like God kind of puts you in places where maybe you don't feel like you're ready for it, but he kind of knows you better than what you know yourself. And so it was a good learning experience to kind of position me for the steps ahead that where I'm at now. So after 4 years, opportunity came to become the superintendent, and then I was offered additional responsibilities for the water and wastewater kind of utility superintendent. So kind of got to learn both of those utilities. Then after about 13, 14 years, I was offered the town manager position. For those that don't know, I did not get it the first time I applied, so I patiently waited about 18 months later, and the opportunity came again, and I was encouraged to reapply, and the rest was history. So I'll be 10 years as town manager come this September, which is hard to believe. So I told myself I'll do it 1 year, see what happens.
Yep.
And after that 1 year, I'm like, okay, I'll do it 5 years, see what happens. And now I'm 10 years in, so I'm still here.
And it seems... Actually, I think I met you your very first year as town manager back in 2016 was my freshman year at Manchester. And I remember you and I met, and I was just a young freshman from Indianapolis that was up at school wanting to get involved in the community. And I think that was my very first ever community responsibility. After you and I met, you were looking for a volunteer for the North Manchester Traffic Commission. And so in the highly contested seat of Traffic Commission and all of those important discussions was when you and I first met right after you became town manager. And I will say, didn't obviously know each other really well back then, but since then, over the last 10 years, you've gotten to see just your passion and energy and excitement. And really, I appreciate what you said about your faith and being in a role maybe before you thought you were ready for it. And I feel that way a lot in my career too. And I just have seen your excitement continue to grow and around the role and leading in. And we'll get into all the projects you have going on right now. Quick question before that. When you were at Purdue, was Drew Brees there? I'm not trying to age you. Were you before or after Drew Brees?
He was there. That what made it a really fun couple of years when I was down there. There may or may not be a picture of me on a goalpost when they upset a Big Ten school. That would allegedly, I may have been on a goalpost in the Lafayette Journal-Courier, but don't know if that picture's still floating around or not.
Maybe that's why town council didn't hire you the first time
could be.
when you applied, and then they said, oh, we'll give him another shot.
Checked my history there, so.
That's great. That's great. Well, Adam, that's a great journey, great story about how you came to be a town manager. When you were growing up or in school, would you ever have guessed that you'd be the town manager of North Manchester, the community that you grew up in?
I would give it zero chance. There's not even an inkling. I did have, and this is kind of a prior church that we went to over in Huntington, and that preacher, he'd moved away for a couple years and came back. I was telling him about, I guess, the utility superintendent job, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're going to be the town manager one day." And I said, "No way." I said, I think this is it. And he's like, "No, I think God's got some plans for you." Years later, here I am.
In your 10th year.
Yeah. The preacher's name was Bill Warax, was a preacher over there at Northview Church of Christ who married us, Emily and I, and he saw something in me that I did not. And I take a lot that I appreciate that comment, because then I also try to repay that to others who are maybe not know what their calling is, but try to not be afraid of what may be an opportunity to step through a door that might not feel comfortable with, but through faith you kind of led, and that's kind of where I'm at. So
yeah, I think that as I look at the town of North Manchester over the last 10 years, and I didn't have experience prior to your time, one thing I appreciate about working with you on projects, and I think is shown in North Manchester, is just the steadiness of your leadership, right? Just to come in every day and you always know what you're going to get working with you on a project, right? And just that consistency and steadiness. Now, as we transition into some of the projects going on in North Manchester, it's just, we talk about Eel River Commons, right? In that park project, building incrementally over time, right? With one day, one opportunity through due diligence, through a grant process, multiple grant processes. And that's just your leadership, right? You've just worked those projects to bring them to fruition in the town. So just for the listeners, if they've not been up to North Manchester recently, I heard you at a groundbreaking the other day make a comment that we have all the orange barrels from town are maxed out right now. There's orange barrels all across town and construction everywhere. So for our listeners, let's start to get into some of these projects that are going on in the town and not just what they're like today, but maybe some of the history and background we can dive deeper into so people can understand all that goes into bringing some of these projects to fruition.
Yeah, so we're trying to make your trip to North Manchester memorable. Obviously, there's going to be frustration. I've fielded way more calls than I have about the projects and how it's disrupting lives. And I ask everybody to be patient, try to explain as best I can, but there are better days to come.
That's your psychology degree coming into.
That's a psychology degree, yes. Yeah, the orange barrels have migrated from the south. They're here for the summer. They will promise you they will migrate back south in the fall, and we'll be fine. But yes, a lot of the projects, and I am one of many that lead into these projects. I could not do it by myself. There's so many community members that are putting a lot of effort and time into these projects, and even community members who may not be in leadership roles but have joined committees, who have taken surveys to get feedback to make the project what the community wants. Because at the end of the day, we're doing our job, and when our time passes with whatever, that's the next generation's community to live in. So we want their input. We want to do it right, because not every day that the funds that we've received fall to us. Wabash County has did an amazing job of seeking funding, all different avenues, all the different organizations, Grow Wabash County, Community Foundation, University, that have really played into what we have. And if you don't take the opportunity, you don't know when the next one will be. So kind of talking about the Eel River Commons project, that development along the Eel River, just on the south side of the downtown area, has been in conversation for at least 2015, likely earlier than that, but that's when the town had adopted their 2015 Town Comprehensive Plan. For those listeners that don't know, a comprehensive plan is something that the state really wants every community to have, but to have an idea of what you want your community to look like in the future. And that may be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but as opportunities come like what we've had, funding came, and that wasn't something we thought Lily would give out, but it did. Being ready to act on that in the right time, to know we've already talked about it. This is what the community wants. We want riverfront development. We can implement that and go that direction. Otherwise, if you don't have a plan in place to submit an application, you're not ready. So that comp plan was made, and through community involvement, surveys, public discussion, they said that the Eel River is something that I've heard a lot of times is North Manchester's had our backs turned to the Eel River for too long. It's time to utilize it more for what it is. Because some people who drive through town outside of going across the bridge on the east side, you wouldn't know that a river is so close to downtown. And you see so many other communities, and I know Fort Wayne's a larger community, but they utilize the river for recreation, for just general livability within a community. It's a natural resource that not everybody has, and we have it. Let's utilize it. So that was in the comp plan early. It was then reinforced again when we did the 2021 comp plan, when we finally got it approved for all the planned commissions in the community. And when we did the community surveys, riverfront development was one of the most popular things, and I think the easiest to see that we could do. It was just a matter of what can we do with the funding that we have available, and that's kind of where we started to do the small, taking bites at it. There was an old trailer park there on South Mill Street, for those that remember that would flood sometimes. That was looked at as not a great place to redevelop and put housing because it was in the floodplain. So the town purchased that. It was before my time. They kind of cleaned out all the trailers. They built a park there, kind of the initial start of Ogun's Landing, which is now widely known in the county. Got an Okra grant for about $50,000, kind of that initial seed. put a restroom building down there, pavilion, got a canoe launch, kayak launch, which that's been very popular. And I know the upcoming weekends will be busy. Every weekend, as long as it's warm out, you'll see 10, 15, 20, 30 cars there, and people stop there close to the downtown on that kayak kind of launch there. So we took that project. Then we knew that the farmers market was real popular in the community. They were over at River Bridge Electric. They were looking for more of a permanent place and not right there at that busy corner to where they had no parking. I don't know if you remember the early days of the farmers market there by the university, but everybody parked up Wayne Street. It was such a mess to try to get everybody parked, but it was a great mess because you knew people had a need for the farmers market. So at that time, they had approached kind of conversations about where can we move that, and they end up moved down to the current Ogun's Landing area, the launch, and they set up picnic tables or their pop-up tents and stuff there. And it worked, but at that time, when it rained or weather wasn't conducive, then they just didn't have anybody show up. And so that kind of put in our mind, let's redevelop just north of there, which was the old North Central Co-op lumberyard that had sat empty. It had been used for the thrift store. I think it was Wednesday's Child, maybe. I'm not sure what the name on that was, but multiple things worked out of that, kind of a nonprofit use. But they were getting ready to launch their new location on Market Street. So everything was kind of moving them away from that, and that building was going to be open. So the town thought, let's keep following our plan, again, that comp plan, and let's see what we can do with that. So I spoke to the owners. We purchased that, tore it down, kind of came up with a plan with MKM Design as far as a large pavilion, which is a great structure there on the south part of Main Street. Looked at what can we utilize there. Farmers market, obviously that would be a big win for them, and they just opened up for I'm not sure how many seasons just this past Saturday. We've had multiple concerts there, churches rent it, got some graduations, baptisms. Yeah, Manchester Live and Live by the River has utilized a lot. It is open for rent. That's something that people may not understand. Now, it's open all the time. It is a public park. But if you want to reserve it for a reunion or some type of event, you do need to contact the Parks Department to pay a kind of a small fee to have that reserved, and that way nobody else can use it the day of. We've got a few weddings, I think, receptions have been down there. So there's more. The council's trying to be more intentional about creating more things and more activities in that space. So those ideas are always kind of rolling. So we fixed that up. We had a huge outpour of support from the community when we did kind of a capital campaign, but essentially a kind of a fundraising effort to, I think it was like $1.2 million. And we reached out and the community came to the table like they always have, wanted to see something done nice to support that. Since that was done in, I think it was 2018-ish, I don't recall how much the donations were, but there were hundreds of thousands of dollars towards that project, which is amazing for our community and longtime donors. So that got built. And then as we kind of thought, what's our next step? Then Lilly, CCC, the College Community Collaboration Grant came about, trying to partner universities, particularly more rural universities, and how they connect with their communities. So Manchester University had to be the lead applicant. It was kind of a quick, this is what you got to do. I mean, I felt like that was like light years trying to go through that process, trying to pull a committee together. I felt like we met like every other week. Every other week. It was a lot of meetings, and we had a deadline we had to meet. We had to get community involvement, surveys. We had to get university involvement from the students and faculty. We also wanted to prove to them that the community was behind it. So within a short amount of time, weeks, we were able to raise and commit almost $700,000. Town council committed about $400,000, and then the community, it could be a little higher than that, but the community came to the table and pledged it out. And so that was part of the application to say, like, the community's behind that. We did receive through that $6.1 million from Lilly, which is amazing. Not often to get that much money come in like that, to do something that you kind of have on your wish list. Yeah. Because raising taxes on citizens is not what we want to do. We want to turn over every rock we can to find out what funding will help us before we even think about doing something like that. So that came at a great time. Obviously, the university has some projects. So we can talk about some of those other projects, but specifically for Eel River Commons, that was the biggest project in that amount. It's about 3 acres that we purchased, the town purchased a house that we tore down. Right now, we've been in design phase for probably the last year. We've submitted our DNR and Army Corps Engineer permits, just doing a lot of due diligence stuff. That will take 10 to 12 months to get that back before we start breaking ground. We're hoping to break ground late spring to early summer next year and really transform that right now, which is just open grass meadow, to a passive, we call it passive park because there won't be playground equipment there. Very different than some of our other parks, but it'll be trail networked. There'll be leisure spaces for people to sit. And there'll be open grass area for maybe some frisbees or throwing the football, a little stage area for some performing arts. I'm kind of using the natural landscape as the seating area. Hardscape. One big aspect that we really think will be a highlight for those that visit it is the boardwalk pedestrian bridge to connect from one side on the east side, which is the large pavilion, to the lower park. Will be such a fascinating landscape area to take in that river and the whole area back there. So in all, right now, our budget's looking at about $8 million. We did just receive, with Alex's help, with application Ready 2.0, $1 million commitment from that Ready program through the Northeast Indiana RDA. So that's closed that gap on that, but I'm sure we will find and get to where we need to be, whether we engineer some things down, but we're going to get that pedestrian bridge across there and just connect everything. And, some of it, I don't know if it's dumb luck or not, but you kind of just keep working that same direction, and eventually things work out to where they connect. You're like, wow, yeah, we were lucky. We kind of planned that out, right?
Timed this right. I mean, that's
right. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all those details. I think that's so important that listeners hear just how many years and how that project stacked together to where now, sure, could have the town raised taxes, found a way to get that project back then? Maybe, right? But instead, now it's going to be a project that improves the value of all of those buildings, right? There's improvements on the north bank of the river as well, but that amenity on the south side, and over 80% of the funding that will ultimately end up into that project came from outside of Wabash County, right? Through these grant programs. I mean, that's incredible. But also, I think it just reinforces that these community engagement opportunities, like you'd mentioned, the engagement surveys back in 2015, Imagine 185, and the countywide comprehensive plan that prioritized the riverfront development, to the CCC engagement. Hopefully our listeners realize that that's where these projects come from, right? It's not Adam and Alex sitting in a studio just thinking, what does North Manchester need next, right? I mean, all of these grant opportunities require public engagement. And because this concept was at a high level back in 2015 already put together, it allowed us to get sharper with engagement throughout the way that really have driven things like the pedestrian bridge and the location of the pedestrian bridge, right? Those are directly based on feedback from community members. And our job, is to shepherd the project along, identify funding, secure the funding, implement the project, right? But all of those steps in that journey for that project along the way is, I think, really important that our listeners heard you talk about, really since your time as town manager, how that project has continued in development along the river. So it'll be really neat in 2028, standing on all sides on the pedestrian bridge, to see that come to fruition and know all of the different hands that have touched that project and stakeholders and the generosity across our community that's really brought that to fruition is really neat.
Real exciting. And you think, 2028, when it's done and it's ready and usable, still a ways away, but boy, the years have been going by so fast when you start to finish on those things. And sometimes you feel like you just don't have enough time to do everything you want to do in those projects, but we're just one day at a time working through the process. We've got great architects and minds around that are thinking these things up, been through the process, trusting their process. And like I said, the committee members that we have within the community that's still engaged on that. And we may meet every 6 months, sometimes 4 months, just depends on the need. But they're there thinking kind of outside the box, because we as leaders, we kind of get in our silos of moving one direction. And those community members are there to kind of prompt those what if questions, or how is this going to affect here? And so we need that community involvement. And I always want to encourage people to, reach out and ask questions. That's what you're there for of leaders. I think when questions aren't asked early on by others, then different theories or things get miscued to where then there becomes more of a conflict when there should never been. So please reach out. And I always tell people my door is always open. I will return your phone calls. I will return emails. It may not be immediately, but I will get back with you. But I like the conversation because then at least people can understand why we're doing the why. So yeah, a lot of people around this, glad that the community is supportive of it. And I understand construction is not the fun part of the project.
Yeah. For anybody. Yeah, we're not having fun behind the scenes through these things. It's not, but the finished product is what you have to envision it's going to be like. Because Warville Park and so many of our other things, the Aquatic Center, did not just happen overnight, but those are things that we enjoy now and how great it is. But those had construction at some point. So that'll be excited to have that ribbon cutting on 2028 to kind of look back at that, and kind of a 10-year process from when we did the very first Oakland's Landing to there. And it's not just a North Manchester destination. I am certain that there will be others in the community that will want to come see this place, experience it, be next to the river like we've never had it before. Yeah, and I think that what we'll continue to see in the goal really is that more of those downtown building owners, more events in the community are capitalizing on the riverfront by having this space that's created, right? And it really will be a destination for our listeners. As we were going through this planning process, we worked with MKM and others that have done work in Fort Wayne and across the country, really, in some of these projects. But Promenade Park, which is the riverfront park in downtown Fort Wayne, is on 6 acres. And I believe their phase was between 20 and 25 million total, right? As we talk about this 3-acre project. And then the last couple of years of just comprehensive riverfront development, we're around 3 acres and roughly total around $10 million, right? So it's a game changer for a community of 5,000 to 6,000 people, depending on the time of year, to have that asset and that amenity. And it's just, again, incrementally moving that along. Adam, you talk, and just for our listeners that heard Adam talk about the committee and the engagement work of not just he or I in the community making these decisions, every project that you work on, you're engaging stakeholders, right? And truly, I mean, are accessible to the community. We talk a lot at the Community Foundation with our team about stewardship, right? And it's easy to think about stewardship just monetarily of stewarding our resources, but truly stewarding, it's just us in these shoes today, right? You talked earlier in the podcast about making decisions for those students that may be in high school today that are going to move back and raise their kids someday, or be in your shoes or my shoes. And so us going through these processes, realizing that it's not about what you want or about what I want, right? But it's truly engaging the community for 20 years, 30 years from now, when somebody's going to be standing in the riverfront park and enjoying it and have no idea who Adam Penrod or Alex is, no idea what went into those projects or the different meetings, hundreds of meetings, thousands of hours on these projects. But you still every day are just being inclusive, engaging the community through the process, which is great and is true, not just something that you've said on a podcast, but I can tell folks that it's true. Okay, so then stacking on top of that project, the Manchester Mile, right, is another project that the town and the community countywide should know about. A mile trail that will connect along the streetscape, the new riverfront park at Eel River Commons, all the way up Market Street, across some of the amenities that you've talked about already, over down College Avenue to connect to Manchester University was another one of our projects through the Lilly Endowment CCC initiative. For our listeners, maybe just what all will be included in that project, how large of a project, and maybe some of the resources we've stacked together to make that one happen.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a step process or project too. You know, we've had town gown meetings where several town leaders, kind of various sectors, would meet with the university. We kind of talked about kind of what's happening within the university and vice versa the town, and how would that impact? How can we support each other in different ways, or if there's challenges, what can we work on? One of the challenges that I think has always come up is, you know, when students come to campus, you know, most of their careers are 4 years here. So their stay is going to be temporary. We hope that they stay longer and find jobs and have a home here, but some don't, and that's okay. So when they're here, a lot of times is they just don't get to know the town. For someone who's lived in the community my whole life, it's like you could probably walk it blind and kind of know where things are at. But for students, if they don't step foot off campus very often, or they only go down Wayne Street and then out to the east, you don't really get to see what the town has to offer. So we want to be somewhat intentional about, if they can't drive or they don't feel safe walking the community, which there's sidewalks that kind of lead about everywhere, let's make it intentional from the edge of the campus to the downtown. And everybody who's driven on Market Street, like Market Street is one of the main hubs of North Manchester, kind of splits us in half, east to west. But there's so many amenities there that serve the community outside of the downtown restaurants. But you start going north, you've got the excellent Peabody, the library there, public library. Beautiful building, built many years ago and still maintained well. You've got the newly built thrift store that serves so many people in the community. So many volunteers work out of there. Amazed at how many cars are there every day on that facility, that they've doubled in size. You've got Daniel's Place is getting started. They just had their groundbreaking. Short-term respite care facility, a nonprofit that Cheryl Working has kind of built from the ground up. They're building their facility there at the corner of 7th and Market Street. MKM's doing that design work. I expect nothing but a beautiful facility. On the right-hand side, you've got the MELC Center, Manchester Early Learning Center, that was built with Ready First 1.0 money, one of the very first projects that they funded. Beautiful facility, campus, serves many, many families with daycare there. That's a gem in our community. Right across the way, Warville Park, the largest park that we have, community space, open green space with Scout Hall there that has facilities. You go up just a little bit more, you got the Strauss Peabody Aquatic Center that was built, I think, in 2012. So great facility. We don't have the luxury of having a YMCA, but the community came together and built an aquatic fitness center that serves many. The university swims teams there. The high school team swims there. We've have sometimes Tippy Valley brings their kids and swims there. So many things. My kids learn how to swim there. So many learn fitness there. So that's a great facility. We have the high school and all their recreation. Pickleball. I forgot about that addition we just added. Great pickleball facility that was really spearheaded by private people in the community. Tim McLaughlin that just took that on, which I'm grateful for Tim, his passion, and he knew what so many others had passion. Adam Penrod did not have the time to go chase down pickleball court and make that happen, but Tim did. I love those leaders that step up within the community that take on that. I always work alongside those people to help get something great for the community done. And so that addition with, now we have lights down there. So if you want to play late night pickleball till 11, it's open now. So that was another kind of funded. Patronicity has been a huge, huge blessing for Wabash County and North Manchester and getting a lot of projects going.
We're the patronicity capital of Indiana.
With
all of the different patronicity
I keep
campaigns.
Waiting for them to cut us off and say, you know what, you got a whole year.
Alderman Cemetery's right along that same Market Street.
Cemetery there for members that have been in the community that have helped shape what we are. And on the very north end, we have the Manchester Recreational Association, MRA Ball Diamonds. You'll see the lights on late at night, youth activities, and we have our dog park up there as well. So many great things on Market Street. And to get back to what you originally started talking, Manchester Mile, it's going to run right up Market Street up to College Avenue, and then it'll turn towards the university. So with all those things in place, why would we not want to direct the university students to walk that to the downtown and see what we've got? A wayfinding sign is in the future for that, to know 2 blocks. I've heard that story of, we didn't even know where there's a community pool in the town, and it's only like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
So we're going to help them know what it is, and when they venture out and they've got some weekends there, take a walk and see what Manchester has and get them out in the community. And them being out gets to interact with long-term residents here and hope they want to establish their roots here. Just as you came from Indianapolis, you kind of found some roots here, and I want others to kind of have that same experience. Maybe not the Alex Downard experience, but maybe it's just some way that they can fit in the community to give back. And that's what we're about, is making it welcome to all, inclusive, all amenities, making sure we're not missing anything and leaving anybody out, and just trying to pay forward to the next generations. Because our time will pass and somebody's got to pick up that lead, but we're going to continue to lay foundation for that growth that we want to have.
I appreciate your comment there about as a community for all, right? As we look at the Manchester Mile Project's a great example of, yes, that was the college and community connection piece, right, that was required of the Lilly CCC grant. So we use that to create a physical connection, which I believe, even though it may be our smallest dollar amount project in all of our Lilly grant projects, was one of the more core components to our application, because it created that physical connection between community and all of these assets and the university, like you spoke to. But then fast forward a little bit, again, because of the Imagine 185 plan, the Lilly engagement planning process, we were able to get the Stellar Pathways designation, one of 2 counties in Indiana to get that. And 2 of those Stellar projects, just over $1 million, goes to the new Daniels Place construction, which is the respite care facility for folks with disabilities of all ages, as well as the Manchester Mile. We were able to use an additional $1.5 million roughly from the Stellar designation to help finish the Manchester Mile construction. Peabody's another one that's a block off of that area, right? So when you make the comment of just being a community for all people, Manchester University students planning routes, folks with disabilities, folks that are maybe lower income and need the thrift store and the food pantry, the libraries programming, truly North Manchester, with connectivity and accessibility in mind, is truly that destination and that place. When we talk about population, right, we want to retain residents that can grow up here and find a home or go to school and graduate and stay because they've planted those roots, and attract other people, right? And we want all to be a part of that. And these projects, the funding sources stacked together. The Manchester Mile now is $3.85 million roughly in total construction over the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's what we're building, right? As a community, not just you, not just anybody. That's what we're building as a community, is that home for all people.
Yeah, and to finish up on the Manchester Mile, we'll start our first segment, College Avenue, here this summer. They'll have about 14, 15 street lights, so that whole College Avenue segment, which is just a couple street lights right now, it's pretty dark. There's really not much walkway to get to Market Street, but this is just going to completely light that neighborhood up. Not to blind the people they can't sleep. It'll be subtle to the eye, but at least it'll make it safer and more inviting for the students to come out. And it's not just for the students. This is for the community to walk as well. We want people to get out and experience the community. I don't feel like being in their house all day long behind electronics is experiencing the community. It's not the connectivity that we were born to be when we're interacting with others. So having that intentional pathway, getting people excited about, walking here and there and having a safe path is important. The second phase of that Market Street phase will happen, and kind of next year we'll do some paving on the road and get some concrete work done. And then the trail portion will come in 2028. So that will be completed. It's about a 3-year project to get that done. But over $3 million project, which most of it is not tax dollars. It is local match is most of that. We've got some community crossings from the state, and then we got the Stellar federal dollars, and then we got Lilly money. So
again, 80% is outside of Wabash County, probably more. I mean, these projects, that's a conservative number of the resources that not just taxpayer money locally, but even local donor resources. We're so grateful for the donors that have contributed to all these projects, right, and supported these projects. But that paired with the local tax dollars is less than 20% likely in most of these projects, right, that are going towards them.
And we'll have
all outside.
We'll have future maintenance through the parks. That's part of it, but building it is the challenge and having the funds. So to think that we could leverage that, the right opportunities, the right time, is kind of once in a lifetime. I feel like it's once in a lifetime this has happened to North Manchester, and we need to take every advantage of it. And I keep thinking in my mind too, when there's days I get frustrated. I'm human. The process can really drag you down some days as far just because there's so much going on. But I guess when my last day with working with the town, I want to at least know that not just me, but all involved, we've did everything that we know to do is right to have the community grow. And then it's just a matter of people choosing North Manchester for where they want to grow up. That's we cannot control, but we're going to make it hard for them to say no. That's for sure. Tell me another community that has these things, in particular our size, but I just want to make their decision really hard.
Yeah, we're investing in our people, right?
Yeah.
Today and in the future. So if they're going to choose North Manchester, they have to have a place to live. So I think that's another maybe important transition to just talk about some of the housing projects that are going on across the community that are out of the ground already, coming out of the ground, and will be coming out of the ground in the next couple of years that you've worked on. Would be good for our listeners to hear some of that too.
Yeah, so that's, when the Community Foundation kind of started that housing study and why our population is declining. And of anything that scares me at work since I started work for the town, and it should many, is to hear that our population is declining in the county. That threatens all of our livelihoods. And it may not affect us because it's a slow decline, but for our kids, and we like to have family close by, but to threat that and to see if that continues for the next 20, 30, 40 years, I don't think we want to see that future. So that keeping in the back of everybody's mind in the county that are doing these things want a different outcome than when we were projected to. So that kind of started that. If we want our population to not decline, we started looking at some of our challenges. And we had, through data, have some of the oldest housing stock in the state. When you start looking at new house builds, our average home, they were getting older. And not to say an old home's can't still be a good home, but not everybody wants to live in an 80-year-old, 100-year-old farmhouse that needs to be fixed up. They want more of a new built home. We had in North Manchester specifically, it was over 30 years at least. I don't know exact date or year since we've had any new housing lots available. I won't say fault our past leaders, but I think the forethought of we could just ride with what housing stock we had was not going to work. We had to keep adding new to the census of the community. So we, town leaders, knew that we had to make something happen. Developers, they're in the business to make money.
As they should be.
As they should. They can make their money and have less risk by building houses around Indianapolis and Fort Wayne and the bigger cities, Warsaw's all day long, and they can just go on about their lives. So when Chester Heights came available, it took community leaders, and that started prior to me. I was kind of put right in the middle of the discussion about that housing development. There's a lot of feedback from the community that said we don't want this. Obviously, some of the town did have to take on some debt to purchase some ground to have that Chester Heights development, but there was a lot of pushback. They didn't see the value in it. Those same individuals, I think, are pretty quiet right now, and that's fine. It's best to kind of pump the brakes on the leaders to make sure, but everything pointed to we had to make sure that this happened for our growth in the community. So we started conversations in 2016 when I first became town manager. We didn't break ground until 2020, August of 2020. Very memorable year. People remember 2020. So we had a lot of due diligence. We had to work with the developer on minimize his risk. Obviously, having the town's best interest on what we were willing to help and assist with to get that done. We had high hopes to sell of the 34 units, 20 single family, 14 villas. We were hopeful within 7-8 years that we could get them substantially sold and built. We did a lot of housing studies, just various things to just try to know everything we can before we say, let's go with this agreement. And it's worked out as well as what we could have hoped for. I think we've got 24 of 34 sold and people living in it, and we've got a few more that's built and then some empty lots, and the developer only builds them as he sells them.
Yeah.
And most of the members who are living there were from out of the community, out of state, across the country, Texas, Colorado, California, Michigan, obviously to the north, Florida. And they came here because they were getting closer to family, but they really enjoyed the community, the small town feel. And so we're really happy with that. We're growing our community. That's 34 new units that we did not have. Kids in the school system as they have families. More customers for our businesses looking for the services that they need in the community. And because of that, we're planning on within 2 years being full. We can't stop there. That didn't solve it. That helped the problem, did not solve the problem, but it's helping it. So with the ground that we have control out there along 9th Street, we've engaged a developer with the Wabash County Development Corporation, was the respondent on our RFP. And we're working on the phase 2, hoping to kind of launch that at least a year out, give or take maybe another 18 months, that we'll hope to break ground on that so they don't compete against each other, but just go in series with one finishing, the others starting, and continue that progress of new housing. It can only help our community. It can only help our tax base as we spread the tax impact and burden, as we get more assessed value, more kids in the school system, just more customers in general, more residents. So as we expand the housing, kind of lead into, we also have to take care of our infrastructure, which is not something that
less
people
sexy,
see.
the underground, less sexy.
I've had joy to get to know the utility side. That's how I started with the town, and that was important for me to know that. If I just jumped in as a town manager, I think it would not have the appreciation for what the utility guys go through and what an infrastructure that is not seen. But if it fails, it is the biggest catastrophic failure a community can have, a sewer and fresh water system, because everybody uses it. And when it goes, it can't ever stop. Everybody needs to use water. Everybody use the restroom. You cannot just take a year off. It's got to keep going. So as we talk about other projects that are impacting the community, we've got the barrel project on the highway, which has all the barrels. It's a water infrastructure that we're putting down. Basically, it's kind of the main corridor going east to west of town. Right now, the main is old. We've had a lot of water main breaks under there. We know when water main breaks happen, the pipe is telling you it's time, it's getting old, you need to be planning. It's never going to improve itself. It's only going to get more frequent and more worse. And when those happen, it's disruptive to residents because you have to shut mains down. You have to do boil water advisories, those types of inconvenient things. So we've listened to our infrastructure. There's areas that obviously with 30 miles of water mains, there's a lot that has to take care of, and we cannot replace it all. It's too expensive. But we did our due diligence, looked at what areas are old, what has caused us a lot of fits, what's undersized for fire suppression. Doesn't mean that they can't put out a fire, but by industry standards, they need to be bigger to increase volume when fires do happen. There's a lot of galvanized line, which the EPA said those have to be replaced as considered lead services. A lot of things that are being driven by the federal government and water quality standards, but then locally, what our infrastructure needs to be replaced. And we as town leaders, the fun part again is not the construction part. My phone is getting blown up. I understand the community is frustrated because it's disrupting their daily movement around town. Please be patient. The project will come and go. It will not be like the bridge project, which will be 2 years. It'll be kind of more of a summer thing into early fall. But this is needed for our future, just as parks are needed, just as the connectivity we talked about, the housing. We have to keep our infrastructure and planning that as well. Otherwise, we would be neglectful as leaders to do that. And I've told people too, if we don't fix these things, who will be the ones to say, shame on you for not fixing it when you saw it getting poor? So we'll take the bumps and bruises and I'll work with everybody on it. But in the end, that pipe will be good for 80 more years beyond my lifetime. And we've got to keep thinking about that and what's going to keep the community growing and not have something that's going to fail on us in the future. So, and stuff's only getting more expensive. It's amazing what COVID has did for everybody's costs. These projects, the longer we wait, the more expensive they get. and the prices that we're doing now. The water main project is about $12 million. Had we did this pre-COVID, it probably would have been 30 to 40% cheaper. We can't wait. Waiting is not going to be the answer to that. So our water project's working now. We have a wastewater project that's about $30 million. That's replacing our treatment plant, and it's refurbishing that. And we've got a lift station that we're going to fix as well. Half of that project is EPA unfunded mandates. That we have in a court-ordered agreement, which is we didn't do anything wrong. This is how we have at least we're put to the fire to finish this project out in a timely manner, 20 years. Many communities in the state and country have the same agreed order, but we're in 2028, we have to be in compliance with the water quality standards of discharging to the river when a storm rain event happens. So that is a good chunk of it. So you can thank the federal government, EPA, for that.
Always.
They say, fix it. It's your community's problem. We don't have any money, but you come up with the funds. So that's where rates will really be impacted heavy. But we as leaders decide now is the time to also do that at the treatment plant, which was built in the middle 60s and hasn't had any major refurbishing done in 30 years. So again, we could sit there and just keep fingers crossed every day and wait for it to fail, and then it will cost us twice as much, or we do it proactively, knowing, and we can kind of control the variables versus reacting in an emergency standpoint and really be in a troubling situation. So that'll be coming starting next year, will be the treatment plant work. That'll be less travel disruption because that's more at the treatment plant, but it's definitely be impactful for rates, and those will have our first rate, the first of 3 phases will come this summer. And I'll be pushing out here before long an open house. So if you've never saw a treatment plant, highly recommend you come and take a tour. As I mentioned to Visit Wabash County and Christine, I said you might do a trolley tour, bring them down there, we'll show them the treatment plant. But it's a fascinating thing if you've never known what we can do as human beings to treat water and remove the pollutants before it goes to the river. The same river that we kayak in, the same river that people enjoy, is truly fascinating to do. But we're going to have an open house so people can see the present condition of the plant, see the plans, talk to engineers, talk to me, others, just kind of get to see what that treatment plant is all about. So another big project coming up.
Yeah, I hope our listeners are picking up. We've talked stewardship already, but just valuable, not just on how these projects happen and the importance of these projects, but just valuable leadership lessons in making decisions today with you and your team, right, has more information today and the experts around them to be able to make these informed decisions that other residents may not have, right? And they may just feel the impact of some of these decisions and projects. And so taking those bumps and bruises along the way, that's just leadership, right? You're giving a lot of good lessons in leadership of making decisions now that, like you've said, you won't be alive to see the impact, but man, we'll sure be glad that you did, right? That you made those decisions. Your team, one thing, working across the county with different local government leaders, nonprofit leaders, business leaders, we're very fortunate, and your team is no exception to that, right? I think anybody that's worked on a project with the town of North Manchester is going to reap the benefits of these projects in the town of North Manchester. Carrie Mugford, the clerk treasurer, people don't realize how lucky we are to have Carrie in the town. She's set to be the president of the Cities and Towns Association, which her predecessors have been the mayor of Noblesville, Mayor Mishawaka, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. She's representing small town, but she's just like many of our leaders is just, we just don't work and go home. Work is always on our mind. Work is always how do we improve, what mistakes were made and how we get better. We work really well together. I can bump ideas off of her on what she thinks about this. She can tell me no, financially we can't do it. Or, hey, Carrie, this is really important. Can we make this work financially? Or what are some options I have? A lot of trust in her. She's been there for many years. Hope she stays for many more years. But she's right there at the table in most every meeting just to kind of pump the brakes if she sees something just not quite right. She really helps build the budget. I don't do as much with the budget. I kind of help after she's kind of put her draft out there for the departments. Yeah, super knowledgeable. Many in the state reach out to her on a daily basis, wanting to know how she does this, how she does that, and she never turns anybody away.
And she's so informed through our own process because of what she's seen from other communities, right? And she's just a student of her work, right? Continuing education, all of the different conferences. And now, to your point, she's become the resource for most people across the state. And so we're really lucky to have her, Ryan and Shannon on the utility side, the street department, law enforcement. I mean, across the board, the team that you built. Blake, the new building commissioner in Manchester, I've already heard from contractors and architects, loved working with Dave before him, and just you have an A-team, right, that you guys have continued to build, and town council as well has been, I know, important in that.
And maybe the public doesn't know, we meet once a week for about an hour and a half. We have staff meeting. I established that when I first started because at the wastewater plant, I saw that we weren't always connected. It doesn't mean that we didn't know who we were, but we didn't know actually what each department did every week and where we could have some synergies to work together and help out and shared equipment and whatnot. And so we started that, and that's for me, and I think many others, that's our favorite time of the week. Rarely do we miss that. We joke a lot, but we get to talk about what happened the past week, what things went wrong, what things could we improve on, and then looking forward, what's the next week look like. You know, we kind of support each other as a family. We're all kind of going through something different. Maybe it's something with the police department. Maybe it's something with the parks this week. Maybe it's a water main break. We get to hear what and discuss that and talk about the situation. We move on and support each other. I will say them as a whole is what helps me go to work every day, knowing that I've got that A team behind me, that it's not me. It's not me alone. I've got their back and they've got my back, and we're doing things not selfishly, but for the betterment of the community. And Carrie and the council has stressed this at council meetings, that we do think about the residents on every single decision. It is not a me project. It is not a water project that is something right. It is, how will this impact the community? And it's on our minds every single time. And we're glad to give back to the community what we've been kind of the responsibility given to us. So
and you're all community members, right? Your kids are in the schools, you're living in town, and some of these decisions, all of these decisions that you all make, have implications on you all too, right? As residents, as a team. So
the team keeps me there going every day, and we're all getting older, so we know our time will come to an end at some point. Not anytime soon for a lot of us, but I couldn't ask for a better team, supportive, and I will miss them when our time comes. But definitely, they've helped me get through every day as best we can. So,
well, Adam, thank you. I mean, you and your team, just for our listeners to understand, it's a pleasure and a joy to get to work on a lot of these projects together and continue to position the community for the next opportunity. In your leadership style, there's just so much in this episode that young people, whether they're in North Manchester, in Wabash, can just listen to, and lessons on leadership, lessons on project management, and everything. That just a snapshot. We didn't even talk about all the projects in North Manchester going on today. And for residents, I would say go check out North Manchester with patience and seeing some of the construction and all the orange barrels across town. And then a couple years from now, getting to come back and experience these spaces and these projects. I know that decades from now, if somebody uncovers this episode and listens, they'll be grateful you've made the decisions. You and the town have made the decisions you have to position us for the future, for your grandkids someday and their kids growing up and living in our community. So, as always, this episode is made possible through our generous support from Bowen Health, the Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the City of Wabash, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, and Visit Wabash County. Until next time, I'm Alex Downard, and this is the ThriveIN Wabash County Podcast.